In section 3.5, the goal is to find ratios and write and solve proportions. Talking about the vocabulary, ratio is the use of division to compare two quantities. And then if you set two ratios equal to each other, you create a proportion. So a proportion is an equation that states two ratios are equivalents. So a ratio uses division, again, to compare two quantities. The ratio of two quantities, A and B, where B is not equal to 0, can be written in three ways. A to B, and then A colon B, or A over B. If you look at all three of those, each ratio is read, the ratio of A to B. As you are writing ratios, be sure that they are written in simplest form. Taking a look at example 1, writing a ratio. Cell phone use, a person makes 6 long-distance calls and 15 local calls in 1 month. For A, they want you to find the ratio of long-distance calls to local calls. So the long-distance calls, we have 6 of those. And then for the local calls, we've got 15. Now we have 6 over 15 as the ratio, but again, make sure that you simplify this. 3 goes into 6 2 times, and then 3 goes into 15 5 times. So 2/5 is the ratio to long distance calls to 5 local calls. And then if we flip it around, we've got B, find the ratio of long distance calls to all calls. So in this particular case, looking at all calls, you're going to take 6 plus 15, which is equal to 21. And as you can see, we're going to take 6 over 21 and then simplify that ratio and get 2/7. 3 goes into 6 twice and 3 goes into 21 7 times. So the ratio of long distance calls to all calls is 2 over 7. Right, moving to the checkpoints. Here it says Sean and Myra are selling tickets to their school talent show. Sean sold 36 tickets and Myra sold 44 tickets. We want you to find the specified ratio. So here you take the number of tickets that Sean sold. He sold 36 tickets. And then Myra, she sold 44 tickets. So you can take 36 over 44. And then simplify that ratio, in which case 4 goes into 36 9 times, and then 4 goes into 44 11 times. And then looking at part 2, you've got the number of tickets Myra sold, the number of tickets Sean and Myra sold. So in this particular case, Myra sold 44. And then to that, you're going to divide the total that both sold, so 36 plus 44. And then if we were to simplify this, we would get 44 over 80. 36 plus 44 is 80. And then 4 goes into 44 11 times, and then 4 goes into 80 20 times. So the ratio is 11 over 20. Alright, moving on to example 2, solve a proportion. You've got y over 15 is equal to 3/5, and you can use the same methods for solving equations to solve proportions with a variable in the numerator. So what you want to do is write the original proportion, and you can multiply it side by 15. So now I've got 15 times y over 15 is equal to 15 times 3/5. So now that will simplify the left-hand side, getting y by itself. Now you've got 15 times 3, which is 45, divided by 5. And if you simplify that, you do get 9. And I'll leave the check to you, but you can plug that back in and check your solution. Solving these, you can multiply this one by 28 to both sides of the equation. And then if you simplify that, you are going to get C is equal to 63. And on this one, you're going to multiply both sides by 32. So now you've got a by itself, and if you take 7 times 32 divided by 8, the value of a will be 28. Looking at example 3, solving multiple step equation problem. An empty swimming pool is being filled with water. After 5 minutes, the pool has 400 gallons of water. If the pool has 11,200 gallons, how long does it take to fill the pool? You can write a proportion involving two ratios that compare the amount of water in the pool to the amount of time. So here you've got 400 over 5 goes to 11,200 gallons, goes to x minutes. So now we can solve for x. You can write your proportion and then solve your proportion. In this particular case, you can multiply each side by x. The x's will be gone on the right-hand side of the equation. And then on the left-hand side, we've got 400x divided by 5 is equal to 11,200. You can now multiply both sides by 5, in which now if you do just that, you're now going to get 400x is equal to 56,000. And then dividing each side by 400, we'll get x by itself. So now you have x is equal to 140. So the pool is full after 140 minutes. All right. So looking at the checkpoints, an Olympic-sized pool has a volume of 810,000 gallons. If it is filled at the same rate as the pool in example 3, how long will it take to fill the pool? So let's just do that work over here. We're still filling at the same rate, so you've got 400 over 5, set that equal to 810,000 over x. As a quick shortcut, if you do have two proportions that are equal, you can rewrite this the same thing as 5 over 400 is equal to x over 810,000. What I did there was just take the reciprocal of both sides. Since this is a proportion and 0 is not in the denominator, you can do this. And now we can just simply multiply both sides by 810,000. Those will cancel out, and you'll get x by itself, in which case you do get 10,125 minutes is equal to x. All right. Moving on to section 3.6. Here the goal is to solve proportions using cross products. Cross product, the product of the numerator of one ratio and the denominator of the other ratio. That's the cross product. We're talking about a scale drawing. That's a two-dimensional drawing of an object in which dimensions of the drawing are in proportion to the dimensions of the object. And then for your scale model, that's a three-dimensional model of an object in which the dimensions of the model are in proportion to the dimensions of the object. And last, we're talking about a scale. That's a relationship between the drawings or model dimensions, and this should be written as a ratio, the scale measure to the actual measure. So using the cross product property, the cross products of proportion are going to be equal. So if you have 5/6, that's the same thing as 10 over 12. If you take the cross product for this, 6 times 10 is 60, and then 5 times 12 is also 60. So in general, algebraically, if you have A over B is equal to C over D, where both the denominators are not equal to 0, then the cross product is equal. A times D is equal to B times C. So here we have solve proportion. 5 over y is equal to 15 over 75. Writing the original proportion out and then taking the cross products. Cross multiply, you got 5 times 75 is equal to y times 15. You then simplify that and you get 5 times 75, which is 375. And that's equal to 15y. You can then divide each side by 15. So the value of y is 25. So the solution is 25. Doing example 2, write and solve a proportion. Plant food. To feed your plants, you need to mix 3 tablespoons of plant food with 16 ounces of water. If it takes 80 ounces of water to feed all your plants, then how many tablespoons of plant food are needed? Again, you can write a proportion involving 2 ratios that compare the amount of plant food with the amount of water. Here you've got 3 over 16 is equal to x over 80. Again, we want to figure out the amount of plant food for 80 ounces of water. And now we can solve the proportion. You can cross multiply both sides. Take 3 times 80 is equal to 16 times x. 3 times 80 is 240. And then 16 times x is 16x. You can then divide each side by 16. And if you take 240 divided by 16, you get 15. So you do need 15 tablespoons of plant food for 80 ounces of water. Alright, so quickly doing the checkpoint, solve the proportion. They do want you to check your solution, but I leave the check to you. Number 1, you can cross multiply this. You've got 5 times 45, which is 180. We'll write all the steps in there. That's equal to 25 times n. So 5 times 45, that's 180, is equal to 25 times n. And then getting n by itself, divide both sides by 25, and the value of n is equal to 9. If you're dealing with problem number 2, make sure you do put parentheses around any quantities. B minus 2 is a quantity, so please put parentheses around that. And then cross multiply. You've got 3 times b, which is 3b. And that's equal to 6 times the quantity of b minus 2. Now we've got to use the law of distribution and distribute your b term. You now get 3b is equal to 6b minus 12. Now you've got essentially a 2-step equation here. Combining like terms, you can subtract 6b to both sides of your equation. 3b minus 6b is negative 3b. And then that is equal to negative 12. And then dividing each side by negative 3, the value of b has got to be 4. Again, I'll leave the check to you. You should be able to plug in 4 and get a true statement on both sides. And then for the last one, in example 2, suppose it takes 120 ounces to feed all of the plants. How many tablespoons of plant food are needed? And you got 3 goes to 16 as x goes to 120. So you can cross multiply this and get 16x is equal to 360. And now you can divide both sides by 16. And then get the value of x as being 22.5 tablespoons. All right, and then the last problem, use a scale model. And Architect creates a scale model of a school. The school is 50 feet high. The ratio of the model to the actual school is 1 foot to 75 feet. Using those proportions, estimate the height of the model. So we can write and solve a proportion to find the height h of the scale model. So 1 goes to 75 as h goes to 50. And now we can cross multiply, take 1 times 50, and that's equal to 75 times h. And now we can simplify this. 1 times 50 is 50, and that's equal to 75h. And then you can divide both sides by 75. And then simplify this, you do get 2/3, which is equal to h. So the scale model, height of the model will be 2/3. And if you do take your 2/3 and multiply that times 12, since there are 12 inches in 1 foot, you will get 8 inches. And then solving the last problem, suppose the ratio of the model to the actual school is 1 foot to 100 feet. Estimate the height of the model. Again, using the same proportions here, you've got 1 over 100 equals h over 50. So cross multiply, you get 50 is equal to 100h, and then divide both sides by 100. And h is by itself, so h is going to be half a foot, or 6 inches.